Welcome back. There never a dull moment in our nation's capital. President Trump back in office. Measures like the Lake and Raleigh Act, as well as the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, making headlines. And we're not even a full month into the current session of Congress. Joining us now with more on these topics, the new member of Congress from North Carolina, who's close to a lot of the action in D.C. That is Representative Pat Harrigan. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Tim, it's great to be with you.
When I saw you a few weeks ago, you guys had just been sworn in. It was a little bit of flurry, but I think there was this wait for the inauguration. And we've seen what just this last week alone was like. What has the pace been like, especially as a new member of Congress?
Look, time marches on, and we just had the inauguration earlier this week. It was unbelievable to be a part of that. I got to sit in the rotunda for it, watch the actual ceremony happen, and I'll tell you, as much as people like to have it outside, it was really special being in that closed environment, in kind of that small group, and then getting to hear President Trump give his inaugural address, all the things that he's going to focus on as he moves the executive branch forward over the next 4 years. It was something that's really special, and everybody's hit the ground running up here.
Have you kind of found what you think your focus is going to be? I know you can talk about it some, about the committees that you've been assigned to, but also have you had a chance to sign on to bills and whatnot yet?
Yeah, absolutely I have. We've actually moved forward really quickly. We filed our first bill last Thursday. It was called the Americans Act. And I led it in the House. Senator Ted Cruz led it in the Senate. And what that bill does is it reinstates the over 8,400 servicemen and women that were wrongfully discharged from the military for refusing to take the COVID vaccine. And we actually felt like we hit a nerve on this one because President Trump then mentioned it in his inaugural address, and he has already issued an executive order effectively doing much of what we wanted to do in the bill, which is fantastic because we care about outcomes, and this was the right outcome. We owed these people a correction of the record and to do right by them. But the thing that our bill will still carry the water on is actually taking executive and the authority that the Secretary of Defense has when it comes to determining what the mandatory vaccine schedule should be for our Department of Defense. And it now brings that over into the purview of Congress. And why that's important is because we want to slow that process down in the future, depoliticize it. We want the broad consensus of Congress on the same page before figuring out and determining what goes into the veins of our service members. And that should prevent this type of, weaponization, politicization of a vaccine mandate from ever impacting our troops again.
Obviously, with your own military background, is that going to be a pretty good focus for you, do you think, in your time in Congress?
Yeah, it definitely is. I have taken a very clean and have been asked to take a very clean national security approach to my time here in Congress, particularly with Mike Waltz leaving, the only other Green Beret in Congress. He has now moved to become President Trump's national security advisor. That has left a void of someone who can really specialize in a national security track that has both a special operations background and a business background like I do. And so I have been placed on the Armed Services Committee, as well as on 3 subcommittees on armed services, which deals with intelligence and special operations, personnel, and readiness. And that readiness is really focused on our defense industrial base, making sure that we are producing the low-cost solutions to our enemy's high-cost problems. Right now, it is the other way around, and it has caused us to lose the economics of our conflicts. And by extension, that has caused us to lose our conflicts. And as our debt balloons, we're at $36.2 trillion in national debt. We need to be really careful about how we move forward, or we could lose our country. So I'm very focused on making sure that we don't fight wars we shouldn't fight. And God forbid, if we can't deter the next conflict, that we absolutely set the conditions to win the next conflict that we fight. That's the very least that we owe our troops, and that's what we can do to do right by our country and the rest of the free world.
You mentioned the executive order that the president did related to the bill that you filed, that you're still going to move forward with the bill. There have been obviously a flurry of executive orders. Are you at all concerned that there's too many done without Congress and that this is just too much too fast?
No, I think if you just look at immigration, right, this is a broad-based statement that we have all the laws on the books that we need in order to be successful, to find the solutions to the problems that we have. But if those laws aren't enforced, they don't do any good. We used to say in the military, if you don't enforce the standard, you have no standard. And if we don't enforce our laws here in this country, we have no laws. And so what President Trump has done is just reversed the catastrophic decisions that the Biden administration made to simply not enforce our laws. So no, I don't think that President Trump has gotten ahead of his skis. I think he's doing what's prudent to fix the problems that President Biden has created.
Are you okay with all the pardons with the January 6th folks?
You know, look, I think that President Trump is someone that honors his word. I think he was very clear about what his intentions were throughout his entire campaign. And I don't think that pardoning the January 6th folks was a surprise to anyone across the country, that people knew what they were voting for.
Well, speaking of that, what do you see as the path over the next, everyone's going to look at the first 100 days, and we've talked about kind of the fury that's already happened. What do you think is next? And I know it's a loaded question because there's so much happening at once, but but what is the next big thing that you think comes up first?
You know, look, I think that we're certainly going to continue to dive into our border. I think that we're looking at Trump Tax Cut and Jobs Act 2.0. And I think that we are looking at unleashing American energy in order to get prices down for ordinary Americans. I think many of us realize that, look, we've been hit horribly by inflation, particularly the middle class, because of excess government spending. But a lot of that is actually created by the inflationary effects that happen with national energy. If energy prices are higher, the cost of doing business is higher, and that gets passed all the way along, no matter what industry it's in, to the final consumer. And that is in large part the average and middle class American. And so if we can reduce energy prices by unleashing American energy dominance, that's also a national security priority for us. We're going to see not only a safer, more strategically placed country, we are also going to see lower prices for our market economy. And so that is going to be the focus of what's called the reconciliation process, which is the next kind of big vehicle that we're going to use to move forward a lot of President Trump's policies that everybody loves and give those the permanence of law.
All right, we'll see what happens. It is fast paced up in Washington, D.C., especially for these new members of Congress. Congressman Harrigan, it's good to see you. Thank you for your time, sir.
Tim, so great to see you, and y'all be blessed the rest of today. We'll see you.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. It's going to do it for us tonight. In the meantime, as always, if it's on Jones Street or Main Street, you'll find it right here in Capitol tonight. Stay safe, look after each other. We'll see you back here.